All right, let's have a little fun. We're gonna do some bandwagon riding, and we got to figure out what guys are we excited about, what guys are we concerned about. Here we go.
Get off the bandwagon.
It's time for bandwagon riding. Getting on, getting off. Make up your mind, all right?
All right, let's run through a few names here. Let's start with Calvin Ridley. So he burst onto the scene week 1 for Jacksonville. And then the last 2 weeks, he has struggled. I mean, he's dropping passes. He only had 3 catches for 40 yards this past week. Are you jumping off the Calvin Ridley bandwagon?
I am going to jump off the Calvin Ridley bandwagon because I don't think he is the wide receiver to have in Jacksonville anymore. I think after 2 strong weeks in a row by Christian Kirk, I think it is very 1A, 1B there, which is something that, we talked about in the offseason. Christian Kirk being undervalued, he was still going to have a role in the offense. So I do not think it is worth going all in on Calvin Ridley when there is another guy there who is probably just as good.
So Aaron leaves a message. He says, should I trade Ridley for Josh Allen, Ayuk, and Mike Evans? Come on, that can't be a trade someone's willing to make. Of course. Yes. That sounds tremendous. I want to be in your league. I like that. Yes, do that trade. I know Josh Allen, I mean, he's been fine, but he had a nice game against Washington. But I'm not sure people are looking to give up Josh Allen. Man. All right, let's do some bandwagon riding. This seems obvious, but we got to talk about jumping on this bandwagon. We mentioned him last week, Tank Dell. Houston Texans wide receiver, 5 passes, 145 yards, 1 touchdown, and he was targeted 7 times. Now, you know that I've been on the Nico Collins bandwagon, and I'm on the CJ Stroud bandwagon, and I'm on the Tank Dell bandwagon. What about you?
I am also on the Tank Dell bandwagon. Last week, we said that he was going to have a role in this offense and that he was a great player. I didn't know that he was this great and was just going to be torching defenses left and right here. I mean, he was explosive in college. I know all too well going to SMU that he put the work on SMU a few times when we played Houston. So I'm definitely on the Tank Dell bandwagon. He is going to be a great player in the NFL. He looks like he has what it takes.
Yes, no question. All right, we got to talk Jets. A couple guys we could mention whether we're jumping on or off, but Breece Hall, 18 yards, 12 carries, and we saw him week 1. Burst onto the scene, loving life, and then now the last 2 weeks, struggling. But as we know, it's the Zach Wilson effect, and the Jets are struggling overall. And so what do we do with Breece Hall? Do we jump off the bandwagon? I was never really on the bandwagon because I just didn't know what to do with the Jets, and so I avoided the Jets for the most part. So I'm not facing this, but what do you tell people? Do you jump off the bandwagon, try to trade Breece Hall?
Yeah, I was never on the Breece Hall bandwagon either, just because I was concerned with the injury. ACL injuries are never good for a running back to come back the next year. So I would stay off of the Breece Hall bandwagon, especially now that it doesn't look like the Jets are going to be scoring many points for the rest of the season. When you were trying to convince yourself as a Jets fan that bringing in Carson Wentz is going to be better than what you currently have at the quarterback position, that is a scary scenario to think about. I don't know if anyone has ever thought that Carson Wentz was going to be the one to take them to the promised land within the last few years. I mean, the Colts thought it, and then the Commanders thought it. But so I guess maybe the Jets will drink the Carson Wentz Kool-Aid as well. But man, I don't think I would want anyone that is on the Jets on my fantasy roster right now. I mean, even Garrett Wilson, he's so talented, but it's tough to start him in your fantasy lineup every week, knowing that he doesn't really have anyone to throw him the ball, which is a really important part about being a wide receiver in the NFL.
Did you see him mouth on the sideline? What did he say? He can't throw it, or he can't throw the ball or something.
Yeah.
It was not good. You know what your wide receiver saying stuff like that on the sideline. Yeah, I'd jump off the bandwagon all around. But I think if you have Garrett Wilson, you have to start him. He's too good not to start, which is always a bummer. And I think even Derrick Henry owners, I'm jumping off that bandwagon. Jump on the Tyjae Spears bandwagon. You've been hearing me talk about it for the last month or so. But yeah, tough day for Henry as well. But again, it's like if you got Henry, you got to start him. But man, that puts you in a tough spot. It really does. That's why I go back to my theory. I don't like losing guys for the year, but I'm not, if Nick Chubb is out, he's out. So now I got to adjust. But when you have a guy like Derrick Henry, who you're so invested in, he's a first or second round pick, you got to keep playing him. But if he's not performing, he's just sort of killing your team. So it's a really tough thing that happens in fantasy. Last bandwagon question. Are we jumping on, off Ramondre Stevenson, Zeke Elliott? What's going on with the running game in New England? Elliott looked great, or had a nice day stat-wise. I didn't necessarily watch him. But Stevenson hasn't gotten off to the big start that many fantasy managers expected him to.
I'm going to stay off the New England bandwagon. I think this team is a mess. They barely beat the Jets, which we just talked about how horrible the Jets were. So that's kind of impressive to play the Jets that closely. I would not be putting a lot of faith in any New England weapons. I have come around to Hunter Henry, which I know is your guy, and you've pounded the table for him. But for the running backs and receivers there, I'm off the New England bandwagon.
Oh man, we could have asked if this guy was legit. I've already forgotten his name, but the other tight end in New England caught a touchdown. I was watching the game with a buddy. It's like, oh, there goes Hunter Henry. Oh, let's go. That's not Hunter Henry. Who is that? Get him out of here. So that was I had to take back my fist bump. It was you hate that moment where you're celebrating someone's big play and it's not the guy that you think it is. So it doesn't happen too often to me, but that was a big whiff. That was not Hunter Henry. I'm not sure who the other guy was, but we'll see if we see him again.